This video goes over avoiding the common mistake in adding, subtracting decimals and whole numbers. And these two examples illustrate this common mistake. So suppose I add 12 plus 3.1. Students often add like this and they get, say, 4.3. The problem is that you're adding digits incorrectly. This 2 is a ones digit and the 3 is a ones digit. But in fact you're adding the 3 with a 1 in the tens place, and you're adding the 2 with a 1 which is in the 1/10ths place. And this is incorrect. You have to add ones with ones, tens with tens, hundreds with hundreds, etc. So the proper way to do this is what I do is I put after that 12 there's actually a whole number. Remember, a decimal point separates a whole number from a fraction. So I put a decimal point after the 12 and I line the decimal points up like this vertically. So then I can add, and I add a 0 here for a placeholder. So I add 12.0 and 3.1. It's just like adding 120 plus 31. Bring the decimal point straight down, and my correct answer is 15.1. In number 2, I made the same mistake. I'm subtracting a 2, which is 2 ones, from 3 tens. The 30 represents 3 tens. I can't do that. I have to add and subtract tens with tens, ones with ones, etc. And here I'm subtracting a tenth, 1/10 from 5 ones. I can't do that. So what I do is I put a decimal point again after the whole number. So if you just have a whole number and you're adding it with a decimal, put a decimal point right behind the whole number, the ones digit in the whole number. And then I put the 2.1 like this. I line the decimal points now are lined up vertically. I can add a placeholder 0 here, and then I subtract. This is just like 350 minus 21. Bring your decimal point straight down. Now I subtract. I have to borrow here. That becomes a 4. Bring over a 1. That becomes 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. And I get 32.9, which is the correct answer. So every whole number actually has a decimal point right after the ones digits. So if I have 12, that really I can write as 12 point, which it happens to equal 12.0, which equals 12.00, which equals 12.000, etc. Those all are equivalent expressions. 2 can be written as 2 with a decimal point right behind it, which is 2.0, which equals 2.00, which equals 2.000, etc. So example, find the perimeter of a triangle. Remember, the perimeter is the distance around the triangle. In other words, the sum of the sides. So to do this properly, that's 7 and 9. I'm adding with a decimal 6.2. I'm going to put a decimal point behind the 7, put a decimal point behind the 9. Then I can line the decimal points up. I add that with 6.2. I'm going to put a 0 here and a 0 here. Now it's just like 70 plus 90 plus 62, so that's 2. 0 plus 0 plus 2 is 2. Bring down the decimal point. 7 and 9 is 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. So the correct answer is 22.2, and the units are inches. Another example, I have a rectangle. A rectangle is a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral is an enclosed figure with 4 sides, and the opposite sides are equal, and you have 4 right angles in a rectangle. So let's find the area and perimeter of the rectangle. The area is the space inside the rectangle, and that's just base times height, or b times h. Well, in this example, this is my b, or base, and this is my height. So here I'm just multiplying, so this is going to be 13 points. So the area is b times h. Well, b is 13.7 and h is 6. I'll use parentheses here. So I just multiply those together. So that's 13.7 times 6. Now when I multiply, you don't line decimal points up necessarily. You line the numbers up to the right side like this. So now this is 42, carry a 4. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 4 is 22, carry a 2. 1 times 6 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And then I have to move my decimal point since there's a total of one place behind the decimal points here. There really is a decimal point behind that 6, remember, but there's only one place behind the decimal point. I move my decimal point one place to the left in my answer, so my area is equal to 82.2. That's going to be square inches. Now the perimeter formula is I have two bases, 13.7 here, 13.7 here, because these sides are equal. Opposite sides are equal in a rectangle, and then I have two sides that are 6. So it's 2 times base length plus 2 times height length. So the perimeter, P, here is equal to 2 times B. Well, B is 13.7 inches, plus 2 times H, which H is 6 inches. So now I need to take 2 times 13.7. Move decimal point one place to the left. That's 27.4. Plus 2 times 6 is 12. So now I have 27.4 plus 12. Remember, we're going to put a decimal point behind that 12. So I have 27.4, and I have 12 point, because I'm adding these two now. I'm going to add a 0 here. Now it's like 274 plus 120. So get 39.4 inches as my perimeter. In this next example, I'm going to find the missing length of the line segment BQ. And we can abbreviate segment BQ by putting a bar over the BQ. This also equals segment QB. They're the same thing. These are points on the segment, and this represents the segment QB, which is a piece of a line. A line has no length, actually, but a segment does. When we actually talk about the length, though, we actually just write BQ. In geometry, that means the length of segment BQ, which is what I want to find here. So to do that, I'm going to take since 3.4 plus the missing length equals 16, I could write 3.4 plus question mark, or you could put a box, whatever you want to do. You could actually use an unknown variable also, like x. That equals 16. Well, to solve this, I can take 16 minus 3.4. That'll equal box. Well, here's a situation where I got to get my decimal points lined up. So my 16, I'm going to put a decimal point behind it, line up the decimal points with the 3.4, add a 0 here. Now I'm ready to go. This is like 160 minus 34. Bring your decimal point down. Okay, I have to borrow here. That becomes a 5. That's actually now 50. I'm bringing over a 10. 10 minus 4 then is 6. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down the 1. That's 12.6. So my answer is 12.6 feet. And you can double check that by adding 12.6 plus 3.4. That should give me 16, and you see it does. 6 and 4 is 10, carry a 1, 1, 2, and 3 is 6. 16.0, which we said earlier, is the same as 16, so the answer is 16 feet. Okay, in our last example, suppose you have $8 in cash. You spend $6.47. How much do you have left? Well, what I do is I put a decimal point behind the 8, put a subtraction sign, 6.47, write that, add 2 placeholder zeros, bring down your decimal point. Now this is like 800 minus 647. Okay, so I'm going to borrow from the 8, that becomes a 7, bring a 10 over here. Need to borrow here though, so this becomes a 9. Bring over to 1, 10 minus 7 is 3, 9 minus 4 is 5, 7 minus 6 is 1. So my answer is $1.53. We actually have one more example left, and it's with a trapezoid. So I've given the area formula for a trapezoid, and the area of the trapezoid represents how much space the trapezoid takes up. And then the perimeter of a trapezoid is the distance around the trapezoid. So the area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times the height, and the height of this trapezoid is 8, times the sum of the bases. Well, we'll call this base B sub 1, this is B sub 2, and in a trapezoid the opposite sides here are parallel. You have to have at least one pair of opposite sides in a trapezoid. So it's 1/2 height times sum of the bases, and the perimeter is simply the distance around the trapezoid. So we're referring to one lap around the trapezoid. Notice the height is not part of that. So it's going to be 15.2 plus 12.81 plus 31.2 plus 10. So let's do the area first. So the area here is 1/2 times the height, which is 8, times the sum of the bases, which is 31.2 plus 15.2. So I'll add the bases up here. That's 31.2 and 15.2. That's 46.4. So I have half of 8 times 46.4. So these two together added make 46.2. Then half of 8 is 4, so I have 4 times 46.2. Now I multiply. Remember, when I multiply, I line digits up on the right. So that's 8, 24, carry a 2. That's 18. So now I have one place total behind a decimal point, so that's 184.8 square inches. And then the perimeter, P, is the sum of the sides. So that's, I'll start here, that's 15.2 plus 12.81 plus 31.2 plus 10. So now to add these, I'm going to line up the decimal points. Remember, there's a decimal point after 10, so that's 15.1, 12.81, 31.2, and 10. Now I'm going to put a decimal point behind a 10. Notice my decimal points line up vertically. I'm going to add a placeholder 0 here, placeholder 0 here, and 2 placeholder zeros here. So now add up the hundredths digits. That's 1. 2 and 8 and 2 is 12. Put my decimal point there, carry a 1, because that's 12. So that's 1, 5, and 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And 1 and 1 and 3 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So we get 69.21 inches for our perimeter. And this concludes the video on finding and not making the common mistake in adding and subtracting decimal and whole numbers.